Bam. What was that song that they played for the NLCS? That's what's in. How about that, San Diego? What was Ron Burgundy said? Go F yourself, San Diego. Um, what other things can I say about the San Diego Padres? Frauds. Um, uh, Phillies are the Padres' daddy. Wasting the career of future Philly Juan Soto, maybe something like that. I'm sure all these comments won't come back to bite me in the rear end later. But for right now, as of July 17th, we're riding the high, baby. Welcome back to .NET Phillies. We're back. Nice little week hiatus. Took the All-Star break off. I hope everybody enjoyed the home run derby where we saw Vladdy defeat some mother effer named Randy in the final, and then we had the All-Star game, which the NL finally won, the National League. We finally did it, everybody. The drought is over. The Phillies end their drought last year. The National League, under the management of Rob Thompson, ends the 10-year drought of the National League, losing, and we pulled one out. Shout out to Diaz on the Rockies, as we all expected to take home the MVP for the All-Star game. Other than that, it was a pretty mild All-Star like week. Yeah, the Derby was pretty cool. You had Adley go off, but unfortunately lost to Robert, and then you had Vladdy doing his thing. Julio lit the world on fire with his first round, but then teetered off. And Randy in the spotlight, of course, he pulled out to the finale. And then the All-Star game itself was pretty fine. It was kind of boring, honestly, but what are you going to do? You can't have entertainment all the way around for an All-Star game. And I still will die on the hill that the All-Star festivities for baseball are the best in all sports, and call me biased. Sue me. Why don't you? But yeah, overall it was a fun time. Nice little week off. But we have some Phillies to talk about. Craig Kimbrell, shout out to him closing the door. Definitely did not say he was going to blow it, throwing 30 pitches in an exhibition game, but that's neither here nor there. So in today's episode, we got headlines talking about the Phillies taking 3 out of 4 from the San Diego Padres. We have another edition of Where Are They Now? The worst show on the internet. And then we are going to close it out talking about the preview of the Milwaukee Brewers series that's coming up. First game's tomorrow, and they play through Thursday. Should be a very good series. It's going to be very evenly matched. The Phillies and Phillies and Brewers are right there record-wise, so it should be a very, very competitive and good series. And I feel like anytime we play Milwaukee, it's always pretty good. So let's get to headlines through all the week. We had some updates on Alvarado, who hasn't faced live pitching yet. Neither with Sir Anthony. We had a Noah Song rehab update. He threw well, so we might be seeing him soon. And then Painter, kind of the same thing, kind of hasn't seen live pitching, hasn't started the throwing program yet. We had Christian Pache is headed to the IL. He had screws removed that were from a previous surgery that were like protruding out of his elbow. So he's headed to the IL. And Johan Rojas made his major league debut. Very highly touted prospect for the Phillies. 22 years old, defensive wizard, was hitting 308 in AA this year. So it was good to see him. Had a pretty good series defensively and offensively for the Phillies against the Padres. So it was good to see maybe a spark plug put in, kind of similar to how Derek Hall was when he was called up last season. So obviously very different situations and different scenarios, but still a spark plug that could be very important to the Phillies and was very instrumental in them winning the series against San Diego. And then we had Rob Thompson confirming that Bryce Harper will be making his debut at first base at some point this week during the Milwaukee Brewers series. Did not specify when, but it's a 33% chance you get it right. My guess is game 2 of that Milwaukee series that we see Bryce playing first. I'm very, very cautiously optimistic when it comes to Bryce Harper playing first base. I was listening to the High Hopes podcast, and I'm sure if you watch this, you listen to them, and they were talking about it's kind of a good time for Bryce to be playing first base because you kind of have a 2-week buffer period before the trade deadline. If Bryce can do it, then you rock him with first base and you go out and get a right-handed power bat that can play the outfield. If he can't do it, then, you go trade for a CJ Cron or go all in with a Paul Goldschmidt or whomever, but I think this kind of leisure period for Bryce to play is going to be good. He can't be any worse than Hoskins or Hall defensively over there. So I think he can do it. I think Harper is athletic enough to be able to do something like that. I think he is he's just an athlete. He's not slow, he's not sluggish. He plays hard. He's getting work with Bobby Dickerson, who is arguably one of the best infield coaches in the league. So if anybody can get the most out of their guys, it's going to be Bobby Dickerson working with Bryce Harper. And he has a catcher's background, so that could help with the scooping and stuff. And everybody's concerned about him throwing the ball, and that concern's always going to be there, especially coming off Tommy John, and especially how hard Harper throws and will always play at 110% intensity. But, the farthest he's going to go is 90 feet with, first to second or first to home. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about that, but that thought is always going to be in the back of your head that, he's going to do some harm to that elbow and God forbid something happens there, then what are you going to do? But, it's crazy to think that right around now is when Harper would be playing his first game if it stuck to the regular schedule. And instead we have 2 months of Bryce Harper under our belt already. So really good to see. And I think the most important news to come out of this All-Star break headlines is Greg Soto got a haircut. He no longer has the dreads in the back. He is now full shaved, and it couldn't save him from blowing the game yesterday or giving up a run in Game 3. So that I thought was newsworthy. When I saw somebody warming up, and I'm like, who the hell is that? And I'm like, oh my God, it's Soto haircut. I know that's the most important thing, but soon there'll be 2 Sotos on the Phillies. Dave, get it done. But anyway, that was headlines. I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff, but what are you going to do? Don't come here for all your Phillies news because there's bound to be stuff that I miss. Anyway, let's get to it. Phillies took 3 out of 4 from the San Diego Padres, and it was a very good series from the offense. The pitching was not incredible. Wasn't their best, but they were still managed to muster up. I mean, no matter which way you shape it, that is a gauntlet of a lineup. You go from Ha-Seong Kim to Soto, Machado, Tatis, Bogarts, Cronenworth. A loaded lineup, but it is very top-heavy lineup. As soon as you get through that, you got Brandon Dixon and Profar's not. Who was it? Matt Carpenter and Trent Grisham. But it was a resilient team. The Phillies were down in every single one of these games, and they were able to come back in every single one outside of the first one, obviously, but they came close. They made it interesting in the 9th inning of that first game, which we'll talk about, very, very shortly. This was a very stomp on your throat series from the Phillies because, they split here. And the Padres, they're not way behind, but they're behind you in the wild card. Maybe this shifts the momentum, but instead you stomped on their throat and said, no, this is our wild card. We're not taking our spot away no matter what. So it was good. It was awesome to see them step up and actually perform against a very solid on paper Padres team. Obviously, they've been extremely underperforming, but I don't get paid to manage the Padres. That's Bob Melvin, NLCS MVP Bob Melvin, by the way, which we saw the hater Harper finally faced off at Citizens Bank Park, and Harper won, by the way. He won by hitting a base hit up the middle. So no matter which way you shaped it, there, Bob. I think Bob knew. He's like, Bob, he's going to do something here. So it might as well be in Suarez and not Hader and derail Hader's season, which Hader has had an unreal year this year. But I don't think the Phillies are in the market to trade for yet another left-handed reliever. So we'll keep you on there, Josh. But I mean, he's a free agent, so if we want to go after him, oh my God, imagine that bullpen of Soto, Dominguez, Alvarado, Hader. Who else? I mean, Bellotti, Vasquez, Strom. Oh my God, stupid. A lot of lefties, though. A lot of left. There's a lot of lefties on the Phillies, period, but a lot of lefties in the back of that lineup or bullpen, but whatever. So game one, the Phillies lost 8-3. The scoring got started with Gary Sanchez, which, like, come on, it's Gary Sanchez. Solo home run in the third against Chris Sanchez. And then you had Tatis with a 2-run homer after a blunder by was it Sosa, I believe. It's been a little bit. I believe it was Sosa that led to that 3-run home run. And then the Phillies started clawing back a little bit. Yeah, Bohm with the RBI double in the fourth, and then Manny Machado with a home run in the sixth. Dixon with an RBI single in the seventh, and then Ha-Seong Kim also in the seventh with an RBI single. Soto 2-run home run in the ninth to make it 8-1. And then this is kind of when it got interesting. Phillies were kind of battling back. Sanchez went 5 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Hoffman, which we'll talk about Hoffman when we're talking about game 4, pitched an inning, and then Vasquez got lit up 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, no strikeouts. And then freaking Dylan Covey is still on this team for some reason. He went 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, no strikeouts, and then Bellotti pitched a third of an inning. You know, your bullpen, you didn't use your guys, your dudes really, because, you have this doubleheader coming up. So you're using the backup guys and, obviously they got exposed for that. But then, JT had that solo home run in the ninth, and then Ellis reached on an error in the ninth to make it 8-3. And the Phillies load up the bases, forces Bob Melvin to bring in Josh Hader. And then you get 2 pathetic at-bats from Nick Castellanos and Trey Turner, which I'm a little more surprised with Casty than I am Turner. I mean, Turner right now is arguably the most unclutch player in Major League Baseball right now. The guy does not have a clutch bone in his body. But, it was good to see them kind of fighting back a little bit. You come out of the All-Star break flat almost, get beat up by not a bad Padres team, but a Padres team who've been limping for a majority of the season and, under 500 and still trying to get into the race. And you're struggling to really to muster up anything. And, we saw this last year. You go in the All-Star break, he gets swept by the Cubs at the jump, and you're like, oh, here we go. Here's the tailspin. And obviously, the rest is history. But this was kind of my thought of, oh, here we go again. They're going to get, lose 3 out of 4 to the Padres coming out the jump after losing 2 out of 3 to the Marlins, and then tailspin from there. But you saw life at the end of that game. And, obviously they came up short, but, you saw what they could do against a bad Padres bullpen, because this Padres bullpen is like the 2020 Phillies, for God's sakes. It's like the Mets. Like, they got guys coming out of there, and outside of Hader, I mean, it's a bad bullpen. The rotation has kind of been carrying them. I forget, one of my favorite stats is they have like the second best starter ERA since like June, but the worst bullpen ERA since like June 3rd, I think. But the Phillies have been there, and we saw that with the Padres, but that was the only game they lost. Now it's all positivity from here. And I do apologize if I sound a little out of it. I just got off work like 30 minutes ago and to record this for you lovely people. So I'm a little out of it, a little bit, but not really. And the reason I didn't record last night, like I usually do after the series, because the game didn't end until 8. And then I have my show I watch at 9. And then it's just like, I'm not going to release an episode at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Then nobody's going to see it. Like, this is kind of like prime time to release stuff. So I didn't want to do like a half-assed one. Only full-assed here on .NET Phillies. And in case anybody's wondering, it's The Walking Dead. Dead City is the show I watch on Sundays with Maggie and Negan still alive, which it's I've been very pleasantly surprised by that show. The Walking Dead is what it is. Going to be Walking Dead talk for a little bit because that's my second favorite thing. Walking Dead kind of came back with season 9 and 10. It was pretty good. And then season 11 was a bit of a disappointment. And then they announced all these spinoffs. I had low expectations, but, I'm still going to watch it because I love it. But I've been very impressed with Dead City. It's really cool to see in a different setting like New York. And the dynamic between Maggie and Negan is really interesting, and I think Jeffrey D. Morgan and Lauren Cohan play that very, very well. Like those two characters and the hate, the having to work together and hating, relationship. I think they play extremely well. So I'm very impressed with that show so far. So that's .NET Walking Dead. There you go. And then we get to game 2, game 1 of a doubleheader. My player of the game, the Phillies won 6-4. My player of the game was Kyle Schwarber. Schwarbaum had himself a hell of a series. The guys who were complaining about him, I don't want Kyle Schwarber in your leadoff spot. The Phillies are like 20-some and 11. Jack Fritz tweeted it out. And he has like an 8-something OPS since being put in the leadoff spot. The Phillies win when Kyle Schwarber is the leadoff hitter. Get over it. I'm tired of all these people being like, he's not a traditional leadoff hitter. He doesn't hit for a high average. I don't care. I could care less. Kyle Schwarber is a winner. He's a tone setter, and he's a guy I want as your leadoff hitter. I don't care. I know my take about Kyle Schwarber when he was struggling looks bad, but the fact that he's turned it around and as basically not, carried obviously, but he's a tone setter. He hits some Phillies win when Kyle Schwarber goes yard, and that's practically all he does. I love Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. I think it is the best thing for the Phillies, and the stats back it up with him in the leadoff spot. So argue with a wall if you want to, but Kyle Schwarber is your leadoff hitter. That's it. Period. End of conversation. This was also the debut of Johan Rojas. He made his major league debut, and what better way to start by robbing Tatis of an extra base hit and then doubling off Ha-Seong Kim? That's a hell of a way to start your major league career. And then my heart was ripped out when Trent Grisham hit a 3-run home run in the second, and I said, oh, here we go. And then it was nothing. Suarez, Ranger went 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 home runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Ranger has been weird. He's not been pitching well. His past 3 starts has not gone well for him. It's like he's limping to right now. But Ranger does this all the time. He goes off on a run and then has a couple hiccup starts, and then we're like, oh, is Ranger really that good? Is he this? And then he rattles off like 8 straight starts of like 1 run or 2 runs or less, and we're like, oh, there's Ranger. So I'm not necessarily concerned about Ranger Suarez right now. I think he's going to be fine. I think this is exactly the guy that Ranger is. But it's something to take note of that just something off mechanically, I feel like, with him. But it's nothing that the Phillies can't fix. I don't think he's hurt or anything. I just think it's just one of those stretches from Ranger. So then the Phillies didn't really get anything. You then had Marsh with an RBI double in the 6th, and God, the Phillies needed that, especially being down 3-0. You got your Sox beat off of you in the game 1. Phillies needed some sort of turnaround, and this was the turnaround for this team. Marsh with the RBI double, and then Schwarber, as I mentioned, you want this guy having your most at-bats because all he does is hit dingers. Schwarbaum in the 7th inning to tie it up. And then you're like, all right, shut down inning. You bring in Marte, pitched a third of an inning, 2/3 of an inning, one hit, no earned runs, no walks, no strikeouts. And then you bring in Matt Strahm for some reason, and then he gives up the home run to Manny, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, come on, seriously? And then the Phillies rallied in the eighth inning. You had Schwarber with you had Harper with a pinch hit RBI infield single hustling down the line. It was great to see. It was great to see that from him. And then you had Schwarber RBI single in the eighth. That's my leadoff hitter right there to make it 5-4, and then Turner with an RBI single in the eighth to make it 6-4. You got a little scary in the ninth with Kimbrel. You had that collision with Casty and Stott to end the game on the Machado ball. But Craig was able to slam the door, and I'm a little worried with Craig Kimbrel. I mean, he's sitting like 92, 93 right now, and that's usually when he's gassed a little bit. Obviously, after the All-Star game, he threw 30 pitches in there. So if I'm Topper, I'm steering away from him for a couple days just to give him some extra rest to really get him amped up. But who knows? Topper seems to trust Kimbrel a lot, and so do I. I mean, there's no reason why I should not trust Craig Kimbrel because he's been awesome for the Phillies. Obviously, he's an all-star. So I still believe in Craig Kimbrel. Just I think he needs a couple days to rest and slow down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, solid win from the Phils. Especially the day ahead of you. With the doubleheader, it's I'm not a fan of the scheduled doubleheaders, but I mean, hey, what are you gonna do? You got to have them in the schedule, and obviously they put them in the schedule. But then we get to game two, or yes, game three, but game two of the doubleheader. And my player of the game was Johan Rojas. He had 3 hits in this game, including his first major league hit that led to a 3-run home run. But Rojas did not look outmatched in that box. He was working great at bats, was not swinging at balls. Usually young guys, when they come up, they're very overzealous. We saw it with Moniak. We've seen it with Hazley and Kingery when he first came up, and even Maton and Bierling. Like, these guys get overzealous, and want to make a name from this stuff like off the jump. But I think Johan Rojas really took his time out there, was working really good at bats. And, Dombrowski has a choice here. I think the Phillies aren't going to trade Johan Rojas because of the injury to Christian Pache, especially if Harper sticks at first. You take Schwarber out of left field, put him at DH, and then you have Rojas in left or Marsh in left, and then Rojas in center, which would be insane. Pache going on the IL might have been a blessing in disguise. Because originally when the rumors were coming out that the Phillies were calling up Johan Rojas, I initially thought that this was going to be a showcase for major league teams, as a trade piece for whomever. I think if you're trading Johan Rojas, you're going out and getting a dude like a Shane Bieber or who is another like a Shane Bieber or oh my God, I can't think of his name. Or maybe I don't think you would need to put Rojas in a James Paxton trade, but the guys guys studs, I mean, not to say James Paxton's a stud, he's have a really good year and I take him right now, but point is, to be like, hey, he has major league experience, he has this, but then when it was Pache, and we don't know how long Pache is going to be out, so I think the Phillies do not trade Johan Rojas. I think they stick with him. But he played really well. I was very impressed with Johan Rojas, so I'm glad he's up here. I'm glad he's getting at bats, and he kind of was like a spark for this team. And Schwarber and I think Harper and maybe Casty talked about it that when you're playing around major leaguers for so long, you're like, okay, yeah, it's just another day at the office. But then when a young guy comes up, Rojas is 22 years old, it almost injects life where they're taking everything in for the first time and everything. So it was really cool to see them kind of rally behind Johan, and it was really cool to see him have such an efficient series and make an impact immediately with the Phillies. The scoring got started with You had Taiwan Walker had to start 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Not great. Again, the starting pitching wasn't fantastic in this series, but it was fine. The bullpen really stepped up. It got started with a Tatis RBI ground out in the first. And then in the 4th inning, my man Bryce Harper comes up and ends the longest streak of his career without a home run with a bomb in the 4th to make it 1-1. You then had Trent Grisham with an RBI single in the 5th. And then the aforementioned Yohan Rojas' first major league hit in the 5th inning, a little bloop single to center. Followed immediately by a 3-run Schwarber in the 5th to make it 4-2. Rojas then had an RBI single in the 6th, along with Turner in the 6th to make it 6-2. Edmundo had a RBI hit by pitch in the 7th. Stubbs with a walk in the 7th to make it 8-2. Rojas again in the 7th to make it 9-2 with an RBI single. Then things got a little not sketchy, but you had not Jalen Ortiz. Yeah, Jalen Ortiz, right? No. Luis Ortiz, not Jalen Ortiz. Jalen Ortiz, another Phillies minor leaguer. Luis Ortiz was the extra man called up. He tackled the 8th inning, gave up a Juan Soto RBI double, and then a wild pitch by Greg Soto in the 9th to make it 9-4. And then the Phillies swept the doubleheader, which didn't know that was allowed. I thought that in the new CBA, the Major League Baseball teams were not allowed to win doubleheaders, but lo and behold, here we are. They swept the doubleheader, and my balls were bigger than steel. I'm like, damn, they really did it. Pitching wise, you had Walker 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. Then Bilotti 1 inning, Vasquez threw an inning, Ortiz an inning, and then Soto to close it out. So, the whole my apologies. The whole bullpen stepped up. I mean, that's what you hope to get out of a bullpen game. You hope your guys step up, and that's exactly what they did. You used every guy out there in this game or in these 2 games, so they stepped up big time. And it was great to see. And then it was just solid. It was solid baseball all the way around. They were playing small ball. They weren't relying on the big hit. Or the big inning, they were adding on, they were hitting with runners in scoring position. It was just professional baseball. They looked like the better team against the San Diego Padres. So it was awesome. And then we get to yesterday's game, which gave me so much anxiety, so much pain. So obviously it was a rain delay. Originally, I wasn't going to watch the game because I had work all day. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I was making sure. So anyway, originally it was supposed to start at 1:30. I worked until 5, so I wasn't going to be able to watch the game. But then there was the rain delay. The game didn't start till 4:30, so I was able to catch a majority of it. The Phillies won 7-6 in 12 innings. It was a hell of a game. My player of the game was Jeff Hoffman. I mean, the Phillies do not win this game without Jeff Hoffman tackling 2 innings from them, and he's been so underrated for the Phillies. He reminds me a lot of how Andrew Bilotti was last year, and Bilotti's been solid since coming back. Obviously, it's been an extremely limited time, but like I said, the Phillies do not win this game without Jeff Hoffman. He tackled 2 big innings with the ghost runner. So my hats off to Hoffman there. He was really good. And he's my player of the game. I think Schwarber obviously had the sac fly, but they don't win that game without Hoffman. So massive applause to him. He deserves all the credit for this win. So that's talking Jeff Hoffman. So the scoring led off immediately after the 2.5 hour rain delay with Ha-Seong Kim, a leadoff home run, and then Xander Bogaerts had the solo home run in the 4th. And then Trent Grisham in the 5th with an RBI double to make it 3-0. And I'm like, here we go. All right, I guess we'll split. But then Wheeler just settled in, like 7 innings, 5 hits, 3 home runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts, like a solid outing from Zach Wheeler. And then Stott had a solo home run in the 5th. And again, he should have been an all-star, and I'll die on that hill. Just worked really good at bats all game, and you could sense like he was almost there. He was getting there, and then he was able to crush that one out to right field. And then Schwarber again in the sixth with a Schwarbomb to make it 3-2. He then had JT Realmuto after the Harper double, and it was funny, the Turner and Harper interaction, because Turner was at first. Harper roped a double down the right field line. Turner did not score, and Harper was making fun of him, going like, "Because you're 30," and he's like limping away, and they were laughing back and forth. Because I feel like when Harper and Turner were teammates on the Nationals, he scores there, but because of his old age, he didn't. Luckily, JT picked them up with an RBI double in the sixth to make it 4-3. Then at Drew Ellis, they didn't want to face Drew Ellis. I wouldn't either with the bases loaded, pitched around him, RBI walk. And then the umpire, I gotta say something. This might have been the worst day behind the plate I've seen in a long time for an umpire. I forget what his name is. I don't want to remember what his name is because I don't want to give him any more credit. But God, he was terrible behind home plate. He was awful, made terrible calls, rung up Rojas on a ball that was 10 feet outside of the strike zone. Just bad. And that's and there's been so many other awful calls, such as Tatis with a pinch hit RBI single in the eighth to tie it. Manny Machado should have struck out because there was a ball that was quite literally almost down the middle that was called a ball, and then Machado swings at the next pitch. So should have been a strikeout in the inning, but instead Soto gives up the 2-run single to Tatis. And then, you get to pitching wise, you had Soto 2/3 of an innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks. Just not a very good outing for Greg Soto. It wasn't a really good series for him. I don't know if there's like a mechanic thing, if he's just one of those stretches from Soto. He was so good for so long that maybe he's finally starting to come back down to earth a little bit. So we'll see. Marte then picked up the third out in that eighth inning. You had Kimbrel with a scoreless ninth, Strom with a scoreless 10th, and then finally Hoffman with the 11th and 12th inning. Like I said, the Phillies do not win this game without Jeff Hoffman stepping up and being that guy. He was so good. I'm very happy. Very happy with that performance from him. You then had in the 10th inning, Soto had the sac fly to make it 6-5, and I'm thinking, oh, for Christ's sake, here we go. They're not getting anything off Hader, but then the matchup, the end all matchups, you get to Bryce Harper versus Josh Hader, and Harper ropes a single into center field to give the Phillies the tie. And then the 11th, I wanted to punch a wall because Stott on a bunt from, was it? God, who bunted that? Was it Rojas? No, who bunted that ball? Oh, God, that's going to kill me. I forget. Somebody laid down a bunt, and Gary Sanchez, who hasn't made a great defensive play since 2017, miraculously throws Stott out on a line. Stott actually beat the throw, but he just slid off the base, so I guess he didn't, but of course. And then, of course, on the very next pitch, Alec Boehm hit a single, which would have won the game, but regardless. Bob Melvin got ejected in the 12th because it was Rougned Odor was batting. It was 0-1, and Sosa moved up to pick up trash, and nobody ever called time. He was called for a pitch clock violation. Bob Melvin got rung. It was the right call, and then he obviously ended up striking out. And then Schwarber, game-winning sac fly in the 12th, and the Phillies win 7-6. So, Rob, that's what's in San Diego. That's what's in. Read and weep. And I think the perfect comparison is how the Marlins are for the Phillies are for the Padres. No matter how good or bad they are, that Padres just cannot beat the Phillies. And it's awesome. It's awesome to be on the other side of that because we have been just beaten by these teams, just always finding ways to beat us. Teams like, the Marlins, like the Reds, the Giants, the Rangers, just teams that no matter how good or how bad they are, we can never beat. But we tackled Chicago, we tackled Miami a little bit, and now and San Diego has been tackled. So And now that was the Padres series. Phillies taking 3 out of 4. Awesome stuff to see from them. It was awesome. And now the moment everybody's been waiting for. Another edition of Where Are They Now? The worst show on the internet. Series in which we look back on some of the Phillies bullpen arms that have graced us over the past in the competitive years from 2018 until 2021. I'll even probably look at the 2022 guys. A couple of those lovely guys that were there. I got 3 guys. One who's kind of arguably had the weirdest stint as a Philly. One guy who was winded after throwing like 2/3 of an inning and could only throw that in a week. And then a guy and a guy who was supposed to be our great closer at the 2021 trade deadline. So my first guy is a guy who lives in infamy. That would be Luis Avilan. Luis Avilan, lefty. Or no, that was Aaron. Is he a lefty? No. Is he? Hold on. Let me look that up because I'm thinking of Aaron Loop. Because I remember there was a bunch of Philly lefty relievers that they had. I think, is he a lefty? Hold on. He is a lefty. See, I'm not stupid. Lefty. So Avilan signed with the Atlanta Braves as an international free agent. He spent 2012 to 2014 with the Braves, 182 innings to a 2.77 ERA. He then was traded to the Dodgers in 2015 in a 3-team trade between the Dodgers, the Braves, and the Miami Marlins. Spent 2015 to 2017 with the Dodgers, 81 and a third to a 3.43 ERA. And he then was traded to the White Sox in another 3-team trade between the Dodgers, White Sox, and the Kansas City Royals. Spent half of 2018 with the White Sox, 39 and 2/3 innings to a 3.86 ERA. He then was traded to the Phillies in 2018 for Felix Paulino, who I've never heard of in my entire life. So there's that. And then with the Phillies, 5 and 2/3 innings to a 3.18 ERA. He was hurt a lot. It was just one of those guys that at the time Phillies needed a lefty reliever in 2018. They went out, they got Avilan, and it was not great. It was not a great tenure for Mr. Avilan with the Phillies, just 5 innings, and it was one of those guys who's like a myth to a lot of diseased and sicko Phillies fans. He then left in free agency to sign a minor league deal with the New York Mets. He was called up in July of 2019, 32 innings to a 5.06 ERA, then left in free agency again and joined the other New York team, the Yankees, in 2020. 8 and a third, 4.32 ERA for the Yankees. He then was released in August. And then signed a minor league contract with the Washington Nationals in 2021. He was called up in March, pitched in 5 innings to a 12.60 ERA, elected free agency after the 2021 season, and has not been seen since. So that might be the end of Mr. Luis Avilan in baseball. He's not old either. He's a pretty young guy. Well, it's like 33, I believe. So I don't know if we'll ever see him again. I wasn't able to find if he's in an independent league at all. So maybe he is out there somewhere, or maybe he's just enjoying retirement if he decided to call quits. So that was Luis Avilan. I'm sorry, Phillies legend. Then we get to a guy who was winded all the time and could only pitch in like 2 innings at a time. That is side armor Pat Neshek. I was a big Pat Neshek guy back in 2017 when he was like kind of stupid with the Phillies. Neshek was drafted by the Minnesota Twins in the 6th round of the 2002 MLB draft. He spent 2006 to 2010 with the Twins in 129 and 2/3 inning to a 3.05 ERA. He then was claimed off waivers by the Padres, pitched in 24 and 2/3 innings to a 4.01 ERA. He then signed a minor league deal with the Baltimore Orioles, never pitched for them, however. He then was traded to the A's in August. He spent 2012 and 2013 with the Oakland A's, pitched in 60 innings to a 2.70 ERA, so really, really good for them. Then this was the deal. This next minor league stint with the Cardinals, signed a minor league deal in 2014. Pitched in 67 and a third to a 1.87 ERA. So that was by far one of the best years of his career. And I think a lot of his success was the sidearm, like he would submarine kind of thing. And not a lot of guys did that, so it was kind of the deception. And his slider was disgusting when it was on. That then got him a 2-year, $12.5 million deal with the Houston Astros in 2015. In 2 years there, he spent in 101 and 2/3 inning to a 3.36 ERA between those two seasons. So it was really, really solid. He then was traded to the Phillies in 2017 for a player to be named later. I wasn't able to find who that player was. But he in 2017 for the Phillies, 40 and a third innings, 1.12 ERA, and the Phillies weren't competitive at that time. So obviously they were sellers at the deadline. That was the deadline. They trade like Hellickson, Neshek. Who's the other one? Feel like there was one more, but regardless, they traded off Neshek to the Rockies for JD Hammer, and we talked about Hammer in a previous episode. With Colorado, 22 innings to a 2.45 ERA. He then re-signed with the Phillies in 2018 to a 2-year deal, and then only pitched in 42 and a third inning to a 3.61 ERA. He was injured a lot with that during his time with the Phillies. He missed a majority of 2019. Which kind of stinks because he was pretty solid in when he was available. Has not pitched since 2019. I'm pretty sure he retired because he was pretty old when he was with the Phillies. Known baseball card collector Pat Neshek, sidearm guy, got winded all the time, but that's close the book on Mr. Neshek. And my final guy is a guy who was infuriating because Joe Girardi would throw him in the 9th inning no matter what. That would be Ian Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy was drafted in the first round of the 2006 draft by the Yankees, and he spent 2007 to 2009 with them, 59 and 2/3 inning to a 6.03 ERA. He then was traded to the Diamondbacks in a 3-team trade between the Yankees, D-backs, and Detroit Tigers. He spent 2010 to 2012 with the Diamondbacks, 624 and a third innings to a 3.55 ERA. This was when he was still a starter. He then since obviously converted to a reliever. He then was traded at the deadline to the San Diego Padres, a team which he spent 2013 to 2015 with, 426 and a 2/3 innings to a 3.97 ERA, so pretty solid. That then prompted him to get a 5-year, $70 million contract with the Kansas City Royals. And with the Royals, he got 546 and 2/3 innings to a 4.48 ERA, so pretty solid. Tenured in Kansas City for Ian Kennedy, pretty average, not bad, not great, but, innings eater, good, solid. Then signed a minor league contract with the Texas Rangers in 2021, 32 and a third inning to a 2.51 ERA. Then that prompted the Phillies to ring up the Texas Rangers, trade them, Spencer Howard and a couple other guys for Ian Kennedy and Kyle Gibson and Hans Kraus. And then with the Phillies, 24 innings to a 4.13 ERA. So not bad, but not a guy you want as your closer because that's all Girardi would use him as, was the closer. It was infuriating. Then he signed after leaving the Phillies in free agency, he then signed a 1-year deal with the Diamondbacks, 50 and a third innings to a 5.36 ERA. Arizona actually declined his mutual option, became a free agent. He signed a minor league deal with the Rangers, 10 innings, 7.20 ERA. He then was designated Rick Simon. He was outrighted to AAA, which he rejected to elect free agency, and then he re-signed back with the Rangers. So he is currently still in the Rangers system. So Ian Kennedy is still sticking around in the league, which is cool. But that concludes another edition of Where Are They Now, the worst show on the internet. We're getting down to the end of it, unfortunately. I might look at some of the hitters that we had, some of the lineups to look back. Maybe I'll do something with that. I'll be like, this was the Phillies lineup in 2017's opening, and then maybe like All-Star break and then this, and then look at all the players, where are they now and stuff like that. So maybe I'll do that once all the pitchers run out. Just so keep an eye out for that. So to wrap up, we have the Milwaukee Brewers coming to town. It's always fun when Milwaukee comes to town. They are a forbidden fruit for me. I love the Milwaukee Brewers. I think I love their fans and everything. So a little guilty pleasure for me. We have Aaron Nola versus Julio Teheran, Christopher Sanchez versus Wade Miley, and Taijuan Walker versus Corbin Burnes. So great pitching mashup. You know, pardon me. Aaron Nola, I don't know what we're going to get out of him. He's been on rest for a while, so he's got a lot of rest under his belt. So who knows what we'll get from him. Chris Sanchez just looking to continue his solid stretch here that he's had as the Phillies' fifth starter, and Taijuan looks to bounce back after a pretty shaky outing against the Padres. So just try to win a series. That's all you can do at this point in the season, is just build, stack series wins and go from there, and good things happen. And just a reminder before I get out of here, August 10th, 6:40, 1-year live stream extravaganza. I'll be here. We'll be right here. TV, live reacting, commentary of the entire game. So watch out for that. I will keep you guys updated on that every single episode before the event. So look forward to that. That's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If get in the comments, talk, let's have a conversation. Feel free to subscribe, like, follow, comment. All the links are down below, so feel free to follow me on all of them. And I will see you guys Thursday. See you.